Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are cracking open some incredibly compelling ideas about how habits actually work.
Yeah, and the profound impact they can really have on our lives.
Exactly. This deep dive is pulled right from the pages of Atomic Habits, well, specifically the excerpts you've shared.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission is basically to cut through the noise and give you the absolute best nuggets.
Yeah, the core stuff, understanding why these tiny, tiny changes can stack up to something truly remarkable.
And what's fascinating right from the start is how the author grounds these powerful ideas
Yeah.
in a very personal story.
Oh, yeah, the injury. He talks about this horrific accident hit in the face with a baseball bat.
Right, facial fractures,
Yeah.
double vision for weeks.
Hmm.
Couldn't even drive for, 8 months?
Yeah, and basic things like walking straight needed physical therapy. It sounds
Yeah.
awful.
Absolutely devastating. And he doesn't say it was, one magical moment that brought him back.
No, not at all. Or got him from being in a coma to, like, an academic All-American.
Right. He describes it as this really gradual process.
Exactly. He calls it a long series of small wins and tiny breakthroughs. That's the key phrase.
Mm-hmm.
The key wasn't some massive leap, but making progress by starting small, really small.
And he applied that same philosophy later on, didn't he? Building his business, even writing the book itself.
Yes, exactly. Taking that idea of tiny, consistent effort from physical recovery and applying it elsewhere.
That's a powerful thread. And it leads us right into the core concept.
Mm-hmm.
Why do these small, almost insignificant changes actually matter so much?
Because they compound. That's the heart of it, really.
Compound interest for your life.
Pretty much. These tiny gains or tiny losses build on themselves over time. Think about it, your current results, your finances, fitness, knowledge, even the clutter on your desk.
Okay.
Those are simply lagging measures of your habits. The book puts it so clearly, you get what you repeat.
Okay, so the outcome isn't the thing to chase directly. It's the underlying system, the habits that produce the outcome. That's a bit counterintuitive.
Totally. And time is the ultimate magnifier here. It magnifies the margin between success and failure.
So a 1% change today might seem like nothing.
Exactly. Invisible today. But over a decade or two, the difference is staggering.
Wow.
Are you consistently spending less than you earn? Getting those workouts in, reading something new each day? Those small daily choices are quietly shaping your future,
But this is where I think so many of us get stuck. We start these small habits, we do the thing, and nothing seems to happen right away.
Oh, absolutely. We get discouraged and quit.
Yeah.
That's the infamous valley of disappointment. We expect progress to be this nice, linear, upward slope.
But it never is it? Reality often feels flat.
Right. You put in the work for days, weeks, maybe months, and it just doesn't feel like you're moving forward. It's incredibly frustrating.
It's like you're pushing against a wall and there's no visible movement.
Exactly. But the material points out this is just the nature of any compounding process. The most powerful outcomes are delayed.
Delayed. Okay, so the work isn't wasted.
No, it's being stored up. Beneath the surface, on what's called the plateau of latent potential.
Plateau of latent potential, I like that.
Think of the ice cube analogy he uses. Heating it from 25 to 31 degrees doesn't seem to do anything, right?
Right. Nothing happens.
But at 32 degrees, bam, it melts dramatically. All that prior work wasn't useless. It was building the necessary conditions.
So what looks like overnight success to everyone else?
Is really just the moment the ice cube hits 32 degrees.
The breakthrough that happens after all that hidden, consistent work on the plateau.
Precisely. The visible shift only happens once you've built up enough momentum or, pressure in the system.
Like geological forces building before an earthquake.
Yeah.
People see the earthquake.
Not the decades of pressure accumulation. Exactly.
That analogy really clicks. So if the results are just the earthquake, the visible outcome, we shouldn't fixate on that.
Right. We should be focused on building the system that creates the pressure in the first place. The habits.
That's the core message here, isn't it? And it really is counterintuitive for many of us who are wired to focus on goals.
It is. But the results aren't the fundamental problem. The problem lies in the systems that produce those results.
Right. If you only try to fix things at the results level, it's usually temporary.
Exactly. To get lasting improvement, you need to fix the system itself. The material frames it perfectly. Fix the inputs and the outputs will fix themselves.
And focusing purely on goals has another downside, doesn't it? Beyond just hitting the valley of disappointment.
It does. A goals-first mindset often implies, once I reach my goal, then I'll be happy.
Constantly deferring happiness.
Yeah, you're always pushing it to some future point. It sets up this either-or scenario. Either you achieve the goal and succeed, or you fail.
That ties your well-being too tightly to hitting external milestones, which can be pretty stressful.
Definitely limiting and stressful.
So let's dive into the mechanics then.
Hmm.
How do these systems, these habits, actually work inside our brains?
Okay, so the core mechanism is a four-step feedback loop. It's cue, craving, response, and reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Okay.
Your brain goes through this sequence every single time a habit activates. It's the basic structure of every habit, good or bad.
Okay, break that down for us. Step one, the cue.
The cue is the trigger. It's a piece of information that signals to your brain that a reward is potentially nearby.
Like a notification on your phone
Yeah.
or walking into the kitchen.
Exactly. Or seeing a certain person, even a feeling like boredom or stress. Historically, these cues were linked to primary rewards, food, water, safety.
But now they're often secondary things, like money or approval.
Right. Money, fame, status, praise, personal satisfaction. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for these predictive cues.
Got it. So the cue appears, and that leads to step two, the craving.
Right. The craving is the motivational force, and here's a key point. It's not about the reward itself, but the desire for a change in state.
Ah, the feeling the reward will give you.
Yes. You crave the relief from stress, the hit of entertainment, the satisfaction. This is where emotion drives action. Even logical reasons only compel us because there's an underlying emotional or physiological desire. The craving is the engine.
That distinction makes a lot of sense. It's the wanting, not necessarily the having yet. Okay, so cue, then craving, which drives the response.
The response is step 3, and it's the habit itself, the actual action you take.
Checking the phone, going for the run, biting your nail.
Making tea, whatever it is, it's the actual behavior.
And finally, step 4, the reward.
The reward is the outcome that satisfies the craving. It provides pleasure or maybe just relief or completion. And crucially, this step teaches your brain which actions were useful.
So it reinforces the whole cycle, closes the loop.
Exactly. It tells the brain, hey, that worked. Remember this pattern for next time.
So if any of these 4 steps are weak or missing, the behavior isn't likely to stick as a habit.
Precisely. If the cue isn't obvious, you won't start. If the craving isn't strong enough, you won't have the motivation. If the response is too difficult, you won't do it.
And if the reward isn't satisfying, you won't repeat it.
Right. Understanding this loop gives you the power to actually analyze and manipulate your habits, both good and bad.
That 4-step framework is incredibly clear. And based on that, the material lays out 4 laws for building good habits and breaking bad ones. The first law focuses on the cue. Make it obvious.
Right. Because with repetition, our brains become incredibly efficient at picking up on cues. Habits become, well, mostly non-conscious and automatic. We just stop paying close attention.
Which means the absolute first step to changing any behavior is simply becoming aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that powerful idea, paraphrase from Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Exactly. If you're not aware of what you're doing and why, you're essentially on autopilot, aren't you? And the material offers a couple of tools for boosting this awareness. There's the Japanese railway system's pointing and calling.
Oh, right, where workers verbalize steps out loud.
Yes, to prevent errors and stay present. Like, signal is green, check. Path clear, check. Making the internal external.
Okay. How do we apply that personally?
Well, there's the habit scorecard. It's a simple exercise. Just list your daily habits.
Like wake up, check phone, brush teeth.
Yeah, all of it. Then note the cue that triggers each one and mark the habit as positive, negative, or neutral. It acts as your personal point and call system. Gets you thinking about it.
Okay, so awareness first. Then, how do you leverage that awareness to actually make good habits obvious?
The environment is absolutely key. This is huge. Behavior isn't just about willpower. It's a function of the person and their environment. Remember, B is FPE.
Right. Behavior is a function of the person and environment.
We are constantly being shaped by the world around us. Our habits are deeply context-dependent. Often the actions we take aren't from deep conscious choice.
They're just the easiest thing.
They're simply the most obvious option available to us in that moment, in that context.
Wow. So my environment has way more power over me than I might think. Like if the cookie jar is on the counter.
That's the most obvious option.
Yeah.
Precisely. So to build good habits, you need to design your environment to make the cues for those habits incredibly obvious.
Like leave your running shoes by the door. Put the book on your pillow.
Exactly. Sprinkle triggers for desired behaviors throughout your space. The goal is to make sure the best choice is the most obvious one.
Environment design feels really powerful because it's working with that natural tendency towards the obvious option instead of fighting it,
It absolutely is. And the material gives great examples like those Dutch homes with electrical meters displayed prominently. Energy use went down.
just because they could see it easily.
Uh-huh. Or Massachusetts General Hospital redesigning its cafeteria layout. Healthy options at eye level, easy to grab, unhealthy stuff hidden away.
And people bought more healthy food.
Measurably. Small environmental shifts, big impact on behavior.
But what if you can't just redesign your whole house or office? That seems like a big ask.
True. Well, if you can't build a new habit in a completely fresh environment, which is actually easiest because there are no old cues to fight,
Right? Start fresh.
then work with what you have. The material suggests the mantra, one space, one use.
One space, one use.
Try to associate different areas or rooms with specific activities. Your desk is for work only. A specific chair is for reading. The kitchen table is just for eating.
Like creating distinct zones to avoid mixing habit contexts. So don't work from your bed if you want your bed to be a place for sleep.
Exactly. It creates clear dividing lines and strengthens the association between the space and the desired behavior. And, on the flip side, to break bad habits.
Both their keys invisible.
Yes. Cut them off at the source. Don't rely on willpower.
Since that's exhausting.
Totally. Trying to resist temptation is described as draining, ineffective long-term because it takes too much energy. You can't consistently stick to positive habits in a negative environment. Remove the trigger. Remove the need for constant resistance.
And the source points out some negative cues can actually backfire, right?
Yeah.
Like showing those graphic images to smokers.
That's right. It sounds counterintuitive, but such cues can increase fear or anxiety,
Which then triggers the coping mechanism.
which for some people is the habit they're trying to break. Smoking, overeating, bad habits can be almost autocatalytic, feeding back into themselves. Removing the cue is often far more effective.
Fascinating how much our surroundings dictate our actions without us realizing. Okay, moving on to the second law, which focuses on the craving. Make it attractive.
Right. This law taps into our motivation system. And the interesting thing is, our behavior isn't just driven by the pleasure of receiving a reward.
It's the anticipation.
Yes, the intense desire and anticipation before we get it. Dopamine, the so-called pleasure molecule, actually spikes highest, not when you get the reward, but when you predict it.
Ah, the anticipation is the real driver. So habits are fundamentally a dopamine-driven feedback loop. That makes sense.
Precisely. Habits associated with high dopamine levels are often the ones we find most compelling or addictive.
Social media, games, junk food.
Yeah, and basic human needs too. Food, water, social interaction. Dopamine is crucial not just for pleasure, but for motivation, learning, memory. It's central.
So to make a habit attractive, we need to somehow connect it to that feeling of anticipated reward. Make it something we want to do.
One powerful technique is reframing your cravings. Basically, change how you think about the cues and the habit itself.
How does that work?
Well, the material mentions Alan Carr's method for quitting smoking. He systematically changes the smoker's associations with cigarettes, reframing them from stress relief to, poison. It fundamentally alters the meaning of the cue.
So shifting your internal narrative. Like if you're nervous before public speaking.
Instead of, I am nervous, reframe it as, I am excited and getting an adrenaline rush to help me focus.
Okay. Or seeing distractions during meditation not as a failure, but an opportunity to practice bringing your focus back.
Exactly. These aren't magic tricks, but they can significantly alter the emotional association you have with the cue and the habit. Makes it feel less like a chore, more appealing.
What else makes something attractive? Because some things just aren't naturally appealing.
Well, there's the incredibly potent pull of social norms. Humans are fundamentally herd animals, aren't we?
We want to fit in.
We have this deep-seated evolutionary drive to fit in, bond with others, gain approval. Our ancestors survived because they were part of a tribe. That need to belong is hardwired.
Okay. And how does that make habits attractive?
We tend to imitate the habits of three main groups. Those closest to us, family, friends,
Makes sense.
the majority, the broad culture or group we're in,
Right.
and the powerful, those we admire or aspire to be like.
So we pick up habits from the people around us.
Definitely. Smoking often starts because friends do it. Our fashion choices are influenced by peers or celebrities. The example of the Polgar family.
Oh, the chess prodigies.
Right. Raising 3 daughters to be grandmasters. In their family culture, obsessive chess practice was just normal. It was the expected, attractive thing to do.
So behaviors become attractive when they help us feel like we belong to a group we want to be part of. That's a huge lever.
It really is. Okay, moving on to the third law. Focusing on the response. Make it easy. This is where the rubber meets the road. The actual doing of the habit.
Getting it done.
And the material makes a critical distinction here. Motion versus action.
Okay, tell us what that distinction, motion versus action.
Motion is planning, strategizing, learning anything that feels productive but doesn't actually produce the final result.
Like researching workout routines or outlining a book.
Exactly. Thinking about writing, outlining chapters, researching topics, that's motion. Action is sitting down and actually writing the words or doing the workout.
Oh, I feel seen. I spend so much time in motion, planning the perfect project, researching the best tools.
You're not alone. We often prefer motion because it feels like progress without the risk of failure or judgment that comes with actually doing the thing.
Yeah, it feels safer.
It's easy to trick ourselves into believing motion is action, but habits are built by frequency, not duration or intensity necessarily.
Frequency, just doing it over and over.
Each repetition wires the behavior deeper into your brain. Repetition itself is a form of change. Like learning an instrument, it's hard at first, but gets easier with repetition.
And we're naturally wired to take the path of least resistance, right?
Absolutely, the law of least effort. We naturally gravitate toward the options that require the least amount of physical or mental effort. It's just human nature.
So to make good habits easy, we need to design our environment and our routines to reduce the friction associated with doing them.
Exactly. Remove the obstacles. Think like those Japanese electronics manufacturers in the 70s focusing on lean production.
How do they do that?
They literally redesigned factory floors so workers didn't have to twist or walk unnecessarily, removing tiny bits of friction that added up to wasted effort and time.
And we see this everywhere in modern life, don't we? Everything is designed for ease.
Think about it. One-click ordering, meal kit deliveries, ride-sharing apps, streaming services.
Yeah, they all reduce friction compared to the old way.
Business is described as a never-ending quest to deliver the same result in an easier fashion. Even governments use it. Automating retirement savings deductions makes saving effortless.
Another great strategy mentioned is priming the environment for your future self, making things easy ahead of time.
Yes, this is super practical. Make the preparation for your next habit part of your current one.
Like laying out your workout clothes the night before.
Exactly. Or the example of Oswald Knuckles resetting the room. After watching TV, he puts the remote back, arranges the pillows. While his shower heats up, he wipes down the toilet.
Tiny things.
Tiny things that prepare the space for the next use, making the environment just a little bit easier to step into for the next habit. It removes a small point of friction later.
These seem like such small actions, but the material calls them decisive moments. Why decisive?
Because they are. They're small choices, like a fork in the road that set the trajectory for the next period of time.
Okay.
Choosing whether to put those workout clothes out or leave them in the drawer is a decisive moment. It makes the later choice actually working out significantly easier or harder. Mastering these small hinges is key to mastering your day.
And the 2-minute rule seems designed specifically to make that initial decisive moment, that starting point, incredibly easy.
It's brilliant because it tackles the biggest hurdle, just starting. When you begin a new habit, the rule is it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Like read one page, not read for 30 minutes.
Exactly. Or take out my yoga mat, not do a full yoga session. Open the class notes, not study for an hour.
So the goal isn't to finish the whole task, but just to make the entry point ridiculously easy. Nail the first 2 minutes.
Precisely. It's a gateway habit. The idea is that once you start doing the right thing, even for just 2 minutes, you're much more likely to keep going. Don't make the beginning feel like this massive effort.
And once you're consistently doing that 2-minute version, you can use habit shaping to build up from there.
Right. You standardize before you optimize. You can't improve a habit that doesn't exist yet.
Makes sense.
Once the 2-minute start is automatic, then you gradually increase the scope. Maybe read for 5 minutes, then 10, but you still focus on mastering just getting through those first 2 minutes of the slightly harder version until you reach your full habit.
That feels incredibly actionable. Start tiny, make it easy, then expand. Okay, the fourth and final law, focusing on the reward, make it satisfying. We repeat behaviors that feel good.
And here we hit a fundamental conflict, don't we, between our evolutionary wiring and our modern world.
How so?
We live in a delayed return environment. Most of the good things we want, career success, health, financial security, have payoffs that are way down the road. Months, years, decades even.
Right, you don't get fit after one workout. You don't get rich after saving one paycheck.
Exactly. But our brains evolved in an immediate return environment. Our ancestors needed to prioritize finding food now, avoiding predators now. The rewards and dangers were immediate.
So our deep-seated bias is toward instant gratification.
Pretty much. And this is why bad habits are so sticky and hard to break.
Because the negative consequences are delayed.
Right. Smoking leads to future cancer, overeating to future obesity, procrastinating to future missed deadlines.
But the rewards are immediate.
Yes. Stress relief now, delicious taste now, temporary comfort now.
So instant gratification almost always wins in the moment of decision because you're prioritizing the desires of present you over future you.
Exactly. Just having good intentions isn't enough when that immediate reward is calling.
So the key is to work with this biological reality, not against it.
That's the argument. Find ways to add some form of immediate pleasure or satisfaction to the good habits that have long-term payoffs.
Okay. And add immediate pain or cost to the bad habits with delayed negative consequences.
You got it. Tip the scales in the moment of choice.
How do you add immediate pleasure to something like saving money or exercising? Those don't always feel great immediately.
You can create artificial immediate rewards. The material gives that example of the couple saving for a Europe trip.
Right, what did they do?
Every time they skipped eating out something with an immediate payoff they were giving up, they'd immediately transfer the money they saved into their special Europe trip savings account.
So they saw the progress immediately. That felt good.
Exactly. Seeing that account balance grow right away felt satisfying. The important thing, though, is to choose rewards that reinforce your desired identity.
What do you mean?
Like, reward finishing a workout with a relaxing massage that reinforces self-care and health. Don't reward it with a giant bowl of ice cream because that kind of conflicts with the health goal, right?
Good point. Align the reward. And eventually, hopefully, the intrinsic rewards kick in.
Yeah, feeling better, having more energy, seeing the results. Those become satisfying in themselves over time. But immediate rewards help bridge the gap.
And to make bad habits less satisfying, you make them painful or costly in the moment.
That's where things like a habit contract come in, making a formal agreement with yourself, maybe with penalties.
Like the S.T. Harris example, the guy trying to lose weight.
Yeah, he set up penalties if he didn't meet his targets. He'd have to pay his trainer $100, his wife $500.
Or wear a rival baseball team's hat.
Ouch! Exactly. Those were immediate, tangible costs for failing. Makes skipping that workout feel a lot less appealing today.
And just having an accountability partner can work similarly, right? Even without money changing hands.
Absolutely. Simply knowing someone is watching, someone you respect, adds pressure and makes failure immediately uncomfortable.
You don't want to let them down.
Right. There is an immediate pain. The fear of being seen as unreliable or lazy. The example of comedian Margaret Cho doing a daily song challenge with a friend is perfect. Failing means letting that person down today.
That immediate social cost is powerful. And the hand-washing project in Pakistan you mentioned, that's a brilliant real-world example of making a habit satisfying.
It really illustrates the power of this law so well. Researcher Stephen Luby and his team found people knew hand washing was important for health.
But they just weren't doing it consistently.
Right, consistency was low, so they partnered with Procter & Gamble to provide Safeguard soap.
And what was special about that soap?
It was a premium product. It smelled nice, it lathered well, it felt good to use compared to the basic, maybe harsh bars people used before. It made the act of hand washing itself satisfying.
And what happened?
Consistency soared, which led to massive reductions in illnesses like diarrhea and pneumonia, and years later, even when the free soap program ended,
The habit stuck.
over 95% of households kept up the hand washing habit because the act itself had become satisfying to perform. The feeling made the difference.
That's incredible. The feeling of using the soap made the crucial difference for long-term change.
Wow. So these 4 laws give us the practical steps, the how-to. But underlying all of it is this idea of identity, which keeps coming up.
It's the engine, really. Your behavior is in this constant feedback loop with your identity. What you do reinforces the type of person you believe you are.
So if I start running every day,
You start building evidence that you are a runner. And when your actions align with your desired identity, doing the right thing feels easier, more natural.
because you're just acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be.
Exactly. The material calls identity change the North Star of habit change for this reason.
The North Star. I like that.
Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. The focus shouldn't just be on getting a result like running a marathon.
But on becoming the type of person who runs, an athlete. Right, every run is a vote for that identity, building evidence for it, making it easier to cast the next vote.
But you mentioned earlier, identity can also become a problem later on. How does that work?
It's a subtle track. Once you strongly identify as a certain type of person, say a runner or a writer or whatever,
Yeah.
that identity can sometimes create a kind of pride or rigidity. It can prevent you from seeing your blind spots or being open to changing how you do things to reach the next level.
So you might resist new training methods if they don't fit your image of what a runner does.
Exactly. It can make you defensive or resistant if new approaches conflict with your established self-image. It's something to be aware of.
That's really interesting. So identity is the driving force initially, but it can become a barrier to further growth if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And as you move from just building habits to achieving like real mastery in any field, there's another major hurdle that pops up.
Oh, yeah. A big one. Boredom.
Boredom, not
Yep.
failure.
Well, failure happens, but boredom is often the bigger killer of long-term progress. Habits are essential for mastery, right? They make fundamental actions automatic, freeing up mental energy.
Okay, that makes sense.
But they're not sufficient on their own. You need deliberate practice on top of that automaticity. And deliberate practice.
Well, it often isn't exciting. It's repetitive.
So the biggest threat to achieving peak performance isn't necessarily the spectacular flameout, it's just getting bored with the grind.
That's what the material argues, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the big mistakes that derail most people, but the sheer monotony of repeating the same actions over and over and over.
Like practicing scales on a piano or doing the same drills in sports.
Exactly. The difference between the best athletes, musicians, writers, entrepreneurs, and everyone else often comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over.
So successful people don't just wake up magically motivated and excited every single day. That's comforting. Not at all. They feel lack of motivation and boredom just like everyone else. The difference is they still find a way to show up despite the feelings of boredom.
They push through it.
Mastery requires practicing even when it's dull, when it's annoying. Anyone can work hard when they're fired up and feeling inspired.
Right, that's the easy part.
The true test is consistency when the work isn't stimulating. As the book says, professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way.
Wow. Professionals stick to the schedule. Is there anything that helps mitigate that boredom, even slightly, make it a bit more bearable?
Well, the idea of variable rewards comes up like slot machines use. Unpredictable rewards can actually reduce boredom and intensify the craving sometime.
Keeps you guessing.
Yeah. And also the Goldilocks rule helps maintain interest for existing habits, working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities, about 4% beyond your current level.
Challenging but not too challenging. Keeps you engaged.
Exactly. It helps maintain that flow state where things feel engaging,
Yeah.
but fundamentally,
You still have to be willing to show up when it's annoying or painful or draining.
that's the bottom line for high-level performance. The author notes he never regretted doing a workout or writing the article or showing up for something important, even when he really didn't feel like it beforehand.
The feeling afterwards is usually worth it.
Right. To become truly excellent, you have to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom.
Fall in love with boredom. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it rings true, doesn't it? Finally, the material delves into some deeper philosophical reflections that kind of tie into all these ideas about desire, pleasure, and satisfaction.
Yeah, it gets quite thoughtful there. It suggests that happiness isn't a permanent state, but maybe resides in that space between one desire being fulfilled and a new one emerging.
The pause between wanting things.
Kind of. And suffering, conversely, is the feeling when there's that gap between craving a change in state and actually achieving it, the wanting but not having.
And we're often chasing the idea of pleasure rather than the reality itself.
Yes, we pursue the mental image of how we think something will make us feel, but pleasure itself, or satisfaction, ensues from the action. That's a paraphrase of Viktor Frankl.
Desire is pursued. Pleasure follows after the effort.
Right. It reorders things significantly.
And there's a point about finding peace not necessarily by solving all your problems.
But by managing your reaction to them. Peace comes when you don't automatically turn your observations or feelings into problems that need immediate fixing.
Accepting things a bit more.
Maybe. It also notes that your actions are the most honest reflection of your true motivations. If you say something is a priority, but your habits don't reflect that,
You don't truly want it enough.
you don't truly want it, at least not enough to actually act on it consistently. Your behavior reveals your real priorities.
And why is self-control so difficult? We touched on willpower earlier.
Because resisting desire isn't inherently satisfying. There's no reward loop there. It doesn't resolve the craving, it just ignores it. It requires you to release the desire rather than fulfill it, which takes effort but doesn't give that dopamine hit.
There's no immediate positive reward associated with saying no. That makes sense? And ultimately, our satisfaction level seems tied to our expectations.
Exactly. Satisfaction is described with a kind of equation. Satisfaction, liking, wanting.
Liking minus wanting. Okay.
If your wanting consistently outstrips your liking of what you actually have or achieve, you'll always feel unsatisfied.
Always chasing the next thing.
As Seneca is paraphrased, being poor is not having too little, it is wanting more. It's about the gap.
And the author's own experience with his email list illustrates that perfectly.
Yeah, being thrilled by gaining 1,000 subscribers initially, compared to that number feeling routine, even expected years later when he was gaining 1,000 daily.
His expectations shifted completely.
And so did his level of satisfaction from the same outcome. The potential pain of failure also correlates directly to the height of your expectation. If you expect less, failure hurts less.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to digest. We've gone from the tiny mechanics of, like, cues and rewards all the way into these broader insights about desire, satisfaction, and even the nature of happiness.
It really connects the small, mundane actions we take every single day to the biggest questions about living a fulfilling life, doesn't it?
It really does. So just to recap the key takeaways from this deep dive for everyone listening, we've seen the astonishing power of tiny habits compounding over time,
Yeah, that 1% better each day idea.
and the critical importance of focusing on building effective systems rather than just chasing specific outcomes or goals.
Fix the inputs, the outputs follow.
Then there's the fundamental four-step habit loop: cue, craving, response, reward, the backbone of it all, and the practical strategies drawn from the four laws to manipulate that loop. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
4 really actionable levers. And remember that changing your identity is the core driver for lasting change. It's about becoming the person who does those things.
Right. And that the path to true mastery in any area involves embracing the inevitable boredom
Falling in love with boredom.
and finding a way to consistently show up, even and maybe especially when it's not exciting.
Showing up is key.
So as you think about all of this, maybe consider the small daily choices you make, those little decisive moments throughout your day, and how they are silently, powerfully shaping the type of person you are becoming, often without you even fully realizing it.
It's happening whether we pay attention or not.
So maybe the question to leave you with is, what might be the smallest possible step you could take today, based on these ideas, that casts a vote for the person you want to be tomorrow?
A small step, but potentially a very significant one.
Thank you for listening. If you found value in this audio, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful content on motivation, habits, and wealth building. New audiobooks and summaries are uploaded every week, so stay tuned and keep growing. This is Neural Wealth, where your mindset meets your future. Until next time, stay focused, stay hungry, and stay inspired.